This is a Ford Puma. Now, if you're thinking about buying one of these, do yourself a favour and watch this video, because I'm going to cover all the common problems, show you everything that tends to go wrong, so you can go out there and buy the best example possible. Let's get into it. Okay, let's start with engines, and in particular the 1 litre EcoBoost. No doubt you've heard some horror stories about this. Right, so I'm glad to say most of those stories you'll have heard relate to the older version of this engine, also known as the Fox engine. That's what was fitted to the older Focuses and Fiestas, amongst other models as well. The big difference between those older engines and this newer one is the timing setup. Now, the older one, the Fox engine, that used what was known as a wet timing belt. Essentially, the timing belt was fed through the engine oil, that combination of hot oil and rubber. Not a good one. The belt would slowly start to disintegrate. The little particles that came off it would get picked up by the oil feeds, often leading to blockages and new engines being required. This new one, thankfully, Ford came to their senses and fitted a timing chain. Much more durable, but one little advisory on this. This engine still uses a wet belt for its oil pump. Although not as problematic, who knows as the years and miles roll by if it's something that's going to become more prevalent. One thing I would say is if you are buying one of these and it is the 1 litre EcoBoost, make sure it's not missed any services and make sure it's always had the correct oil used. Ideally buy a certified Ford garage or some other type of evidence to show that the right oil's been used, because that wet belt is picky about what oil it's running through. Now, alongside that 1 litre EcoBoost engine, you're going to find mild hybrid technology in your Puma. That leads us on to issue number 2. But before I can tell you about the issue, I need to explain a little bit about the way the electrics in the Puma work. So the Puma, as is the case with many modern cars, features a self-charging hybrid battery, also termed as mild hybrid technology. Now, the way this system works is that the engine feeds through an inductive motor. That power then goes through an inverter and winds up at the 48 volt battery. That's the battery that's responsible for providing propulsion via the electric motor. Now, also on that circuit is the standard 12 volt car battery. That's the one that you find under your bonnet. Now, the issue that would occur, and what a lot of owners experienced, was when not enough power was being generated by this system, the 12 volt battery, the battery responsible for starting the car, would die, leaving you stranded. Now, although details are sparse, Ford definitely made a couple of changes that helped combat this issue over the years. First was the physical 12 volt battery. The originals were made by a company called Rombat, and the later ones were made by a company called Varta. These were the more superior batteries, and Ford seemed to shift to these mid-production cycle. And also, those customers who complained they were having problems appeared to get a new Varta battery fitted. On top of that, they also done several software updates to the car, so I'm glad to say this problem seems to be largely resigned to the past. Unless you're looking at a very early Puma and it's not been back to the Ford dealership since, you're likely not going to see this problem. Now, a quick favour to ask you for. If you're getting value from this video, please do hit the like button, and also I make these buyer's guides for literally every type of car, so it might be a worthwhile subscribe for you as well. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below also. Now, another issue that a lot of owners reported when they got the cars new was paint peeling along the bottom of the doors, usually where it meets the door seal. Now, check that's not the case on the one that you're buying, because if they haven't noticed, it's likely got worse, and we don't want it coming out of your pocket. Now, on the interior, these cars seem to be holding up really well. Apart from the odd squeak or rattle, other things you need to be aware of is some of the fan motors. Now, these blew, again, usually in the earlier cars, so double check that the fan motor is working when you crank it up to full speed. And also, you're going to get this lovely digital display in front of you here, although some owners have reported that it can have some flickering issues, so make sure that's not the case on the one that you're buying, because that out of warranty isn't going to be cheap. Right, let's get it out on the road, see how it drives. Not as good as the original, of which I own 3, I will say that. Let's be honest, this isn't a car you're going to be setting lap record times in. It's a car to move you and your family about safely and in comfort, and from that point of view, it's absolutely fine. It's definitely a little bit softer, more roly-poly than its chunky looks would have you believe, but the upside of that is it is comfortable, it is compliant on the road. No disappointments there. That engine, well, you're either going to love or hate that 3-cylinder strum noise that it makes. I do think it gives it a bit of personality. That personality might be a bit more Fiat 520er than chunky little SUV, but at least it's got a bit of character. As I say, you'll either love or hate it. So long as it doesn't eat its oil pump belt, who's really caring? Now, as for the interior, well, given that it is just a Fiesta, it is absolutely fine. Fine is the word. It's no frills. Nothing really exceeds your expectations, but nothing really falls short either. Everything's roughly where you think you're going to find it. The materials are roughly what you would expect. It is fine. Apart from one thing in here, and this just really irks me, it's this infotainment screen. Who in their right mind decided that angling it away from the driver was a good idea? That's one of those little things that now that I've pointed it out, you're never going to be able to not notice it. But there you go. You now have all the tips you need to go off and find yourself a brilliant Puma. However, here's one added little tip as well. When you do find that choice car, doesn't need to be a Puma by the way, you can use this on any car, visit Vehicle Score. What this service does is tells you the good and bad points about any given car for completely free. If you are serious about buying that car though, purchase one of their paid HPI reports for a full background history report on it. I'll add a 15% discount voucher in the description below alongside a link. But for now, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.